She's from Kiev, Ukraine, but her family was forced to flee the war and come here to live with her cousins in Boxborough. She will be telling the story in her third language, English. And unlike everyone else, she will be reading her story for us. So please welcome Anya Prick.
Африка значит хлопот. Тихо. Вместо хлопков.
English is my third language. That's why I will be used this. Good evening, I am Anya Prick. It has been half a year since I became your new neighbor. I came from Ukraine. Not too long ago, my life was quite blissful and predictable. I lived in the historic center of a large city, Kiev, in an old building located on a quiet and shady street. I worked as an accountant. Last December, both of my grown daughters celebrated their weddings. We had daily jobs, common worries and delights, and made plans. Our biggest problem was the coronavirus. Then, on 24th of February, our lives were turned inside out. A phone call from my friend woke me up at 5 a.m. She said, "Anya, we are being bombed." By midday, reality became terrifying. Russia invaded Ukraine, rockets and shells were raining down on much of Ukrainian cities. Columns of Russian tanks were rolling toward the capital. We huddled on the floor of the underground subway station to the sound of air raid sirens, surrounded by people just like us and lots of pets. The internet worked and we could see the war online through nightmarish videos. It seemed to me that I got trapped in a war movie, or maybe I was still sleeping, which couldn't possibly be real. We needed to find a safe place. My older daughter refused to leave her husband, who just had eye surgery and would be helpless a week while his eyesight recovered. My younger daughter's husband was serving in the military and urged us depart without delay, though he and other men, 18 to 60, had to remain ready to defend the country. My 81-year-old father also wanted to stay, but because he was the only driver, we persuaded him to take us. We had to pack fast. It was difficult to decide what to take with us. On the one hand, it would be a hard journey which might require us to spend nights outside in winter. Of course, we had to pack essentials. On the other hand, we might never get to come home again. Should we instead take old photos, the children's drawings, favorite keepsakes? The next morning, we set out and drove west. In the trunk, we had extra water, food, blankets, medicine, and warm clothes. My father insisted on packing a dozen eggs. He loves eggs. By the first stop, the eggs were as scrambled as our house. The roads were jammed. There were fires throughout the city, with smoke rising into the air. After several hours, we managed to get on a highway. All lanes were packed and crawling at 10 miles per hour. Oncoming lanes were empty, but all of a sudden a caravan of Ukrainian armored vehicles appeared. The cars around us leaned on their horns, and we all waved and cheered the troops on. Suddenly, a loud warplane swooped in, flying low in an intercept course. We gasped. Was it our plane guarding the troops, or enemy flying to destroy them along with us? In a movie, such events flash by in mere moments, but in real life, it felt like a long fall into the abyss. On the first day, we managed less than 80 miles. Everywhere we went, we were grateful for the assistance of others. Our relatives in a provincial village let us stay at night and gave us 5 gallons of gas because we were almost out. The next day, we took the back roads. This was also reminiscent of a movie. but more zombie apocalypse than war movie. The streets were deserted. Gas stations, restaurants, and other roadside business shuttered. We crossed occasional checkpoints where terrifying locals armed with hunting rifles tried to self-organize territorial defense. The trip to the Polish border, ordinarily a 10-hour drive, took us 6 days. There were no vacancies in any of hotels. Cafes and diners were all closed. In Western Ukraine, the people who lived along the road were holding signs offering free hot meals, tea and coffee, and diapers for babies. To stay overnight, we had to call around to find local relatives or volunteers who would open their doors to strangers. We were one family in a sea of 4 million fleeing the country. The line of cars at the border to exit into Poland was 2 days long. To get through, you had to rely on the kindness of strangers to bring you food, drink, and gas, because you had to run the engine to stay warm in the winter at night, and you couldn't leave without losing your spot. There we saw an unforgettable scene. Just as a car had reached the border crossing, the driver got out. He gave his last hug to the woman who got behind the wheel in his stead. The man then turned back, walking on foot, returning to defend his country, and the children in the car were staring at him, their noses pressed against the rear window. Once in Poland, we again had to rely on volunteers. I knew that there were kind people in the world, but I never imagined that there were so many of them. The support was incredible. Soon we had an Airbnb and groceries, and my father, my daughter Sasha, and I waited for word from US immigration about our visa applications. We FaceTimed our family in the US and our family in Kyiv every day, and we held our breath. But at least we were breathing. Finally, in April, the US opened the Uniting for Ukraine program. Our cousins in Boxborough jumped on the opportunities to sponsor us, and soon we had humanitarian parole status. We came to Boston in May and have been living here since. We were welcomed warmly, and it's comfortable here. It's a beautiful part of the world. And the family, friends, and neighbors here are kind and wonderful. I know that I should be grateful, and of course I'm incredibly grateful to the generous people of Ukraine, Poland, and the United States who helped us come here to safety, and to our loving family with whom we now live. But it is bittersweet. I'm not grateful that my city, my country, and my very way of life are under attack, and there is little that I can do about it. My children are in Ukraine now, and my heart stayed there with them. Thank you for listening.